My magic camera start in hand. Begin. Hey, it's Megan
and Sue in the restricted section.
And today we are going to do a July wrap-up.
Yep, and we're going to drink this Amra? It's a mango IPA from Destihl Brewery.
Yes.
Which is in Illinois.
Or, if you're my family, Illinois.
Illinois?
Yeah.
Arkansas? Missouri?
There's a certain family member of mine who pronounces Bronson. Despite the fact that I have instructed said person, it is Branson, not Bronson.
Bronson. It sounds so fancy.
Yeah, it's
going to Bronson.
Going to Bronson makes it sound like you're gonna go play like bridge at the club instead of like just go to old people Vegas and watch shows about Jesus.
Yeah. Not like, it sounds fancier on like Versailles. There's a town in Missouri called Versailles, and that's how it's pronounced in Missouri.
Yep.
But it's spelled like Versailles.
Right. But don't say it that way in Missouri, or no one will
If you
know
say Versailles when you're there, people will be like,
"What?
The fuck you talking about?"
What?
Anyway,
let's drink.
I think it's good, but I don't taste mango really.
I do in the aftertaste. I didn't at first.
I like, which might be a good thing for me because I actually don't like mangoes.
I don't mind mango flavored stuff sometimes, but mangoes smell like feet.
Yeah, totally.
And real mangoes, I don't like actual mango.
Yeah. But this just tastes like an IPA to me, which is not a bad IPA,
No.
but
I like it.
I don't really taste any juicy, fruity.
Mango.
It says juicy, fruity, hoppy. I just taste the hoppy.
I'm catching the juicy
Which I'm
fruity
okay
on the
with.
backside. I guess Amra is Sanskrit for mango.
Oh. The more you know. Alright, so let's get into the books we've read. I read 6 books. Megan's like, hold on, I gotta count all mine.
I read 10. Apparently. Okay, I read 10, I guess.
Alright, do you want to talk about this one together first?
Let's do that thing.
So we both read Wool by Hugh Howey.
Yes.
Which is the first book in the Silo trilogy. And this is a dystopian novel where the Earth is no longer habitable, like the air is not breathable, you will die, and so people live in this big giant underground silo.
Yes.
But some of the people there start to think that something a little fishy is going on, and
they want to explore that possibility, but that's really dangerous because people who ask those kind of questions generally get sent outside and they die.
I was just thinking, we've already talked about this, haven't we? And I was like, oh yeah, it was in our Tome Topple wrap-up. So if you want to hear more about it, then watch our Tome Topple wrap-up. But we both really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I loved it.
I gave it 4 stars.
Same.
And do you want to go ahead and talk about the second one?
Yeah, this is actually the order I read things in, so this is working out.
Oh, it's not for me. I read a couple before I read this one, but we also both read the second book in that series, which is Shift. And this is actually a prequel to Wool. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of covers the time before this happened, before the Earth became uninhabitable and all that, up to the part where Wool begins.
Right.
Well, a little bit into Wool.
A little bit into Wool.
Yeah. So up through Wool, I guess.
Yeah. I thought this book was cool because it talked about, because in all the dystopian or post-apocalyptic novels I read, I always want to know, like, how did it happen?
Yeah.
And so I thought this book was cool because it tells you how it happened.
Yeah.
Which is pretty boss.
Yeah, and we both really enjoyed that too. I also gave this one 4 stars.
Same.
Although there were a couple of, I think I have maybe like the self-published version. I'm not really sure. Well, it says Broad Reach Publishing.
Mine says Mariner.
So I think this is like an earlier edition than yours, but I was deeply offended
Oh.
Not really. I mean, for the most part, it was really good, but there was like one part where the page number had a % sign after it for no reason. And then another part where he used the word whelp when he meant welt, which is like a pet peeve of mine because people do that all the time. I'm like, a whelp is a puppy.
Yeah.
A welt is an abrasion. Yeah.
Part of skin, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, no!
Stop it!
How could
Stop it! Why would you do that?
But anyway, it bothers me almost as much as when people say sherbet.
Yeah, I learned that that's not a word. It's sherbet.
It's sherbet.
Sherbet.
I've had this argument with many people. And they're like, no, it's sherbet.
No,
look it up, bitch! It's sherbet!
It is. If you look it up, it is sherbet.
Yeah, because people have tried to correct me when I say sherbet. Like, you mean sherbet? No, I mean sherbet!
Because it's sherbet! That's true.
Anyway. Why don't you go again, because you read more than me.
The next book I read, we talked about in our Tome Topple wrap-up, which is not that bad. At least I think we did. Maybe we didn't. I might be wrong. Not that bad. Dispatches from Rape Culture by Roxane Gay. I think we talked about it in the Scholars tag, which is why I'm thinking that I've talked about it before. Anyway, it's a collection of essays about rape culture. There's like 30-something essays by a very diverse group of people. And it was infuriating, but very powerful, and I say I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, I feel like it was very important and very relevant. It's not like it was...
It was good.
It was good. It wasn't, like, pleasant to read about people's experiences with rape and sexual assault, but yeah, it was good.
Side note, but I realized the book I planned to read for a collection of essays for Read Harder Challenge is not actually a collection of essays.
Oh no.
It's a collection of like conversations, like interviews type things with scientists. So instead, but I realized that I also own The Geek Feminist Revolution.
Yeah, which was good.
Is a collection of essays.
And it was
so
good.
I'm going to read that stuff. But anyway. The next book I finished was also for Tome Topple, so I talked about it there. I also did a full review of this book. You should go check that out because it was kind of fun. Kind of fun to tear it apart, but this was Meg by Steve Alton, and it's about this big prehistoric megalodon that is still alive and comes to the surface and starts eating people. And I did not like this book, unfortunately.
I did not like it.
I gave it two stars because it had like, the shark attack scenes were really good and really entertaining, but everything else was awful. So yeah, 2 stars.
Okay. The next book that I read was on my Kindle, and it was called Hex, and it's written by Thomas Old Huvelt, and it's translated by Nancy Forrest Flyer. It was originally written in Dutch. In this book, I really enjoyed this book. My husband tells me it sounds a lot like the plot of Silent Hill, which I don't know anything about. But it's about this town in like upstate New York, which is haunted by a woman who was killed in the 1600s for being accused of being a witch, and they killed her. And there was a few other like traumatic details that occurred and like surrounding them killing her. And so she kind of haunts the town, but she's like corporeal, like she's there. And so she like, but she isn't subject to like the laws of physics. Like she can just disappear and reappear, but she can't walk through things. It's weird. It's like selective.
Weird laws.
Yeah. It's real selective. So, but anyway, so she haunts the place, and the town, anyone who lives there is stuck there. Like if they choose to leave or whatever, then they go crazy and kill themselves. And if she whispers to you, then whatever she says makes you go crazy and kill yourself. So it's kind of the town trying to figure out how to navigate this haunting presence, especially when things start to escalate and really go to shit. So I enjoyed it. It sounds cool. Yeah, it was a cool book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars.
So the next book I finished was an audiobook, and it was Tranny, Confessions of Punk Rock's Most Infamous Anarchist Sellout by Laura Jane Grace. And this is her memoir. She was, or is still, I think, the front woman for the band Against Me, which I'll be honest, I didn't know who the fuck they were before I started reading this. I don't really listen to punk all that much. But I'd heard Sam from Sarcasm and Sci-Fi say that this was a really good audiobook, so I decided to check it out, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It's about her experience being trans, and also, like, so she talks about, like, before she transitioned and a little bit after she transitioned, and how, kind of how difficult that was, especially being in, like, the punk scene.
Right.
And then she also, which I found this part really interesting too, but she also talks about, you know, what it's like being, because they're, you know, they were like an indie punk band or whatever, and they got signed to a major record label.
Oh, wow.
So she talks a lot about you know, that situation, and how a lot of their fans were like, oh, you're sellouts now because you got signed by a major label, and so it's kind of like this, if you're successful, then
you lose a bunch of your fan base.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. But I found it really interesting. I enjoyed it.
So the next book that I read was Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers, which I read on my Kindle. That is the next book in her series. I don't know what her series is called, do you?
The Wayfarers? I think maybe.
Yeah, I think it's the Wayfarers series. So yeah, that book, it took place around the time of the end of The Long Way to the Small Angry Planet, like when those events were happening at the very end of that book. This is when this one takes place. So it talks about the people on the fleet, which were the ships that left Earth when it became uninhabitable, and kind of what their life is like and lives are like. So there's a few different characters, and I think, as usual, it was very character-driven, more so than plot-driven, and I really loved it. There was a character there who was a caretaker for the dead, and it talked about how they, like, composted their dead and what her role was in, like, comforting the families and, you know, taking care of the bodies, and I thought that was really cool, that it was included in that, so I really liked it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. My favorite book of that series is still the first one, but yeah.
The next book I finished was A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and this is a classic children's book. I'd never read it before though, and it's about this little girl who her mother has passed away, I think when she gave birth to her, I think, if I recall correctly.
Whatever.
And her father is very rich, and he drops her off at this, like, boarding school, and, like, a really small little school, though. It's, like, one house. And leaves her there, and she's, you know, wants for nothing. She's kind of spoiled, but she's, like, she's just, like, a really perfect little child, basically. But then her father dies and also loses all of his fortune before he dies, and so she's left poor, and the woman who's in charge of this school is horrible and makes her be like a servant, basically, and yeah, I really liked it. I wasn't liking it at first because I was like, this little girl's just like too perfect, and it's like she's not a real human.
Right.
But after she lost her fortune and kind of had to, you know, went through some hardships, she kind of became more real, and yeah, I enjoyed it.
I've never read it.
I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars.
So next I read, and this was part of Booktubeathon. Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess we don't have to talk about these much.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them in our Booktubeathon wrap-up.
Yes. So I read Laura the Great Turtle, Indian Legends of Mackinaw Retold by Dirk Goringus. I give this 3 stars. It was written, like, it's copyright 1970, and it was written by a white dude, so, I mean, it was like, it was his telling of Native American legends that he had been told.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was like filtered through a white dude.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was my issue with it, basically.
Why don't you go again, because I only have 1 book left.
Okay. Next I read The Wicked and the Divine by Gillen, McKelvey, Wilson, and Cowles. Those are the last names. I loved this. I love this a lot. I'm going to get more of them because I really loved it. The artwork is beautiful and the premise is pretty cool. Like every 90 years, 12 gods return as young people, but they all die like within 2 years. So they like exist for 2 years and then they die. And then they're dead for another 90 years until they're reborn again. So.
All right. I guess I'll go ahead and talk about the last one I finished, which was also for Booktubeathon. That was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this is about a woman who was a very famous movie star back in like starting in the 50s throughout like the 80s, I guess. And she is telling her life story basically to this young reporter. And I really love this. Like, there's been a lot of hype. Everyone's saying this is fantastic, and it's really good.
I'm really excited to read it.
Yeah, my only kind of beef with it was that some of the dialogue I thought was like kind of stiff and like didn't flow very well, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars. You read all these the first 2 days of Booktubeathon?
Yeah, I read a lot of things. So, because I read like these in a day, and then I also read this the same day. So I read all these 3 in a day. So, and then I read these 2 in one day, because this was the day I was homesick. So next I read From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doty. From Caitlin Doty. To Megan. To Megan. I wish that was the case because I love her. But this book was about her travels around the world and how death practices differ in different places, and kind of like death culture in different areas of the world, and it was really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then I read Asylum by Madeline Rue. This is a YA novel. It's about these students who go to this like summer college prep program, and they end up being dormed in a defunct asylum, and of course it's like haunted and there's some crazy shit. So It was a YA novel. It was fine. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I mean, it had some YA tropies in it, but it wasn't terrible. I liked it. And then lastly, I read Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion. Sue and I were just talking about this book. I really enjoyed this. I kind of loved it. It was cheesy, and it was totally like big pink bow ending.
Yeah. I read it too, but I didn't finish. I didn't read it till the beginning of August.
August 1st or something.
It's not my July wrap-up.
But yeah,
I said wrap-up.
Wrap-up.
Wrap-up. Why are you staring at me, bud?
Aunt Sue, what are you doing? I love you. Yeah, Murphy loves his Aunt Susan, and when Aunt Susan is here, nobody else matters. Only Aunt Susan. There is only Aunt Susan. Yeah. There is no Mimi, only Aunt Susan. He's like grunting. He's loving it.
It's because I scratch him the whole time he's sitting on there.
Loves him, Aunt Susan. But yeah,
his little belly.
His belly's like folded over the table. Murphy is like the cutest little dog in the whole world, but he's got such a, and look at his little leg hanging down.
He's straddling my leg right now. So his full butthole and dick is probably just like all over me, but it's fine.
Baby, we're laughing with you.
Yeah. We love you, Smurfles.
Mimi, I'm not laughing.
He's like, no, I is embarrassed.
I is embarrassed. I has a belly, okay?
I'm sorry.
I is uncomfortable. Okay. Look at him, he's like, it's alright, bud. It's okay. You can have belly. It's okay. Don't put your wiener on the table, though. It's under the table. Fine.
Were you done talking about Warm Bodies?
Yes, I liked it. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was super fun and silly.
Alrighty. So that's our July wrap-up.
Yes. So how did you guys do? Oh, in July. Have you read any of these books that we read? What do you think?
Yeah. This beer, I still don't think it tastes like mango. Ooh! Good thing that was
Mostly
pretty much
empty.
gone.
Yeah. I can get the mango in the aftertaste, but it doesn't taste much like mango.
I don't really taste it at all myself, but it just tastes like an IPA to me. But I'm still enjoying it.
Yeah, I like it.
So, not bad. Yeah, so there'll be some links below where you can find us other places on the internet.
And if you're not already subscribed to the restricted section, please do so.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Say bye, Noodle.
I was trying to lift him up.
He's like, no!
Not having it.